Okay, this is the third video in the series of building the Taro 680 hexacopter. We're going to solder up or construct the power distribution board in this video. If you haven't soldered before, it's a good idea to go ahead and do practice a little on something else before you dive right in. But a couple tips on soldering: don't use these really little small butane powered soldering irons you get. They're actually very nice for small electronics, but it just won't throw out enough heat for something like this. This one here is selectable. It has a 20 watt or a 40 watt power selection on it. I built a quad using the 40 watt selection, and I thought it was just a little bit underpowered to do it. I had a hard time soldering the joints. So I have this one now. This one was $15. It's 60 watts, and it's got a big old fat tip on it, so it really throws the heat out, and I seem to be able to do a better job with this one. One of the reasons why you need a little bit larger soldering iron is these wires are pretty fat. You're looking at a 14 gauge wire from the battery to the distribution board, and then 16 gauge from the distribution board to the ESCs. Also, I'm going to be adding soldering on the NASA PMU will go to this board, and then of course we'll be adding 3 additional female leads, which will just be for accessories that I want to add at a later date. I'm going to add camera gimbal to this quad. I'll probably add some LEDs to this quad, and then I'll go ahead and I'll have a FPV system, which may come right off the battery or it may come off this power distribution board. I haven't decided how I'm going to do it yet. So on the preparation for this board, you should take a pencil eraser and get all the copper spots that you're going to solder to and clean them up really well. There could be some oxidation. Then use some isopropyl alcohol and clean them up after that. And then you definitely want to use some sort of flux. Flux makes the solder flow easier. I think it's a lot easier to solder if you use flux. There's a video out there on YouTube shows a guy using a flux pen, and it looks like it works really great. I don't have a flux pen, so I'm going to use flux paste, and I'll use a Q-tip, and I'll kind of get a small amount on every one before I solder it down and just make it go easier. So okay, that's it. Let's get to it. Okay, the power distribution board is complete. The soldering is complete. You may have noticed I was using this little block as a clamp. It's really helpful to have something to clamp your work down. You kind of need 3 arms to solder, so if you have something to hold it, it works out a little bit better. I bought this, and this is for bullet connectors, XT60 and T connectors, and it holds them while you solder them together, and I was using it for to clamp the board. It works really good. Plus I have this little set of helping hands. I've got the 6 leads coming off, positive and negative, going to my ESCs, the battery leads coming from my battery to the board. And I've got 3 sets of JST connectors here. One will be for my gimbal, one for my LED lights, and another one for my FPV system. And I also have the NASA PMU. So I soldered everything together, and I was doing some resistance checks on it, and I was showing continuity or resistance. If I turn my meter on, I turn to the resistance channel. When these leads are not touching, I show OL, or over a limit. There's infinite resistance between these 2 points right here. Well, if there's any type of resistance at all, that must mean that one of my little solder connections is bridged over, and there's continuity between my positive and negative. So I was kind of freaking out. I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I called the guy I bought this board from, which is multirotormania.com, and the guy's name is Brian. I know he's really good on electronics, and I was talking to him, and he said if I have one of my ESCs hooked up, I'll read resistance. Even though the positive and negative is separate, there's still some resistance going through that circuitry. And I didn't have an ESC hooked up, but I did have my PMU hooked up, so I desoldered it real quick, checked, everything checked out really well. And of course, I just resoldered it back up, so it's not a big issue. What else? The carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is definitely conductive, so you want to be careful about this, all these open connections. I were to mount this up here and just short these two up against the carbon fiber between the positive and negative, I could burn my craft up, wreck something, or cause some sort of malfunction, so don't want to do that. I'll probably actually take this little quarter deck right here and use all the little screws and standoffs there and just go ahead and put that all back together in there. But what I am going to do is I'm going to get some stuff called liquid tape, and I'm going to paint this all up. And it's kind of like vinyl electrical tape, or that black electrician's tape in a can, and you just paint it on. I'll need to do a couple coats and it'll dry all up and everything will be insulated and sealed up really well. So I'll just go ahead and do that, and then we can start assembling this quad. It looks like everything's coming together really good. Thanks.